Father, Lord, we thank you so much for this beautiful day that we've had, this beautiful week with the wonderful weather. We thank you for everyone who was able to come together this evening to spend time in studying your truths and your word and your message. We ask that you bless the Sabbath in a mighty way. Help us to get a lot out of it. Help us to be in good health during this time and be with our sister Jackie as well. She's struggling. She's having some difficulties, and anyone else who has difficulties. I know our sister Tony can, and Susan. Be with everyone. Help us, Lord, to be able to have an incredible blessing this Sabbath and every Sabbath coming up. Help us to continue to grow in wisdom and understanding, and help us to continue to glean more truths over all the lessons that we continue to review. I know I'm preparing for this. I learned a little bit more than I had known before, and I'm very thankful for that. And as many times as we can repeat, the more solidified this incredible information gets in our brains. And we thank you so much for the opportunity to continue to study these things. We thank you and we pray all this in the Lord Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so um I'm going to be largely paraphrasing this because when Parminder did this study, he did it to a group of people on an island over there, some of which may not have had all the information or all the up-to-date information at the time, or hadn't seen him teach before. Too extensive, I'm not sure, but the main point of this series and this presentation, the parable part 3, was to drive home the importance of using parables when we read the Bible. It's not for us, it's not really constructive for us anymore in the time in which we live to read the Bible specifically just for the moral stories, because we live in very prophetic times where things are being fulfilled. And the only way we're going to understand them is by understanding parables and how they work in the Bible. And we'll go over why that's important. But these individuals, I guess there was some kind of not understanding quite how important parables were. So for the first part of this, what we're going to do is we're going to go into why they're important and look at an example. And then we're going to start going into the word itself and its origins and grow from there. And it's going to keep going into the future presentations. So with that, the admonition is this: if you're not doing your best when you read your Bible to take your time, even though it may be a struggle. I know every single day for all of us, we have very busy lives, and it's really taxing on the mind to sit there and not just read, but to look at the words you're reading as a puzzle that you have to take apart and put together again to actually understand what they're saying in a deeper way. It's a lot of work, and a lot of people struggle. A lot of people are insecure about, how well they think that they can do that. I know I have problems all the time where I open it and I'm reading and I'm wondering, am I doing this right? I'm not sure. So it's not easy. It is difficult. It is more taxing. But for our time, this is the work that we have to do. And not knowing or understanding how these parables work, because what they do essentially is they help you understand the information in a way that puts your defenses up. Because if you don't understand what you're reading, you're vulnerable to the situation of just having to sit there, listen to someone else explain it to you, and then either accepting or rejecting whatever that teacher might be saying, but you don't actually know what it's saying for yourself. So you're vulnerable to be misled. And we don't read carefully, and we don't really know how to read it. And what we've been doing is learning how to do that. And so, for an example to show why this is important and why it has such a huge effect on our current situation, our understanding of God's word and how it applies to us, We're going to look at two places. We're going to look at Live Sketches, page 411, paragraph 1, and then we're going to look at Testimonies, volume 9, page 11, and we're going to look at what it says here and see why it's important to read using comparable understanding. So in Live Sketches 411, paragraph 1, it starts out, as regards her teachings and warnings concerning the necessity of earnest endeavor in proclaiming the third angel's message in the cities, in view of the calamities that were to befall populous centers as the end of the world draws nigh, Mrs. White has written thus: since the San Francisco earthquake, many rumors have been current regarding statements I have made. Some have reported that while in Los Angeles, I claimed that I had predicted the San Francisco earthquake and fire, and that Los Angeles would be the next city to suffer. This is not true. The morning after the earthquake, I said no more than that the earthquakes will come, the floods will come, and that the Lord's message to us is that we shall not establish ourselves in the wicked cities. So how many of us are familiar with this passage? I think most of us here are. And the next paragraph reads, under date of August 3rd, 1903, Miss White further wrote regarding this sensational report. Now comes the word that I have declared that New York is to be swept away by a tidal wave. This I have never said. I have said, as I looked at the great buildings going up there, story after story, what terrible scenes will take place when the Lord shall arise to shake terribly the earth. Then the words of Revelation 18, 1-3 will be fulfilled. The whole of the 18th chapter of Revelation is a warning of what is coming on the earth. But I have no light in particular in regard to what is coming on New York. Only I know that one day the great buildings there will be thrown down by the turning and overturning of God's power from the light given me. I know that destruction is in the world. One word from the Lord, one touch of his mighty power, and these massive structures will fall. Scenes will take place, the fearfulness of which we cannot imagine. Let's see here. So this passage is the San Francisco earthquake. And from in this passage, we also see the conversation being reverted to New York and calamities happening there. And you have Revelation 18, 1-3. And the third angel's message in there intertwined. And then we continue. Not many years ago, a brother laboring in New York City published some very startling notices regarding the destruction of that city. I wrote immediately to the ones in charge of the work there, saying that it was not wise to publish such notices, that thus an excitement might be aroused which would result in a fanatical movement, hurting the cause of God. It is enough to present the truth of the word of God to the people. Startling notices are detrimental to the progress of the work. And a little bit further, now comes the word. I think we're just going back. So you have 4 or 5 paragraphs here, and it's initially talking about something that had just happened in San Francisco, which was the earthquakes. But because of that, the conversation also turned to something happening in New York. So we have that being talked about. And in these statements, she's saying, I'm not having any special light on New York. I'm not saying anything specific about New York. I'm just saying, she's just stating that there's going to come a time where, those places can be destroyed. And that's all she was really saying. So she then speaks and says that the whole of Revelation 18 is a warning. She says, I don't know exactly what is going to happen in New York, but I don't know that but I do know that the buildings that are going to be put up are going to be taken down by God's power. So that is what she says in this passage. I want us to look at another one. This is taken from Testimonies to the Church, volume 9. This one is we're also pretty familiar with. Let me scroll a little bit on this other side. So the scene that next passed before me was an alarm of fire. Men looked at the lofty and supposedly fireproof buildings and said, they are perfectly safe. But these buildings were consumed as if made of pitch. The fire engines could do nothing to stay the destruction. The firemen were unable to operate the engines. On one occasion, when in New York City, I was in the night season called upon to behold the buildings rising story after story toward heaven. These buildings were warranted to be fireproof, and they were erected to glorify their owners and builders. Higher and still higher these buildings rose, and in them the most costly material was used. Those to whom these buildings belonged were not asking themselves, how can we best glorify God? The Lord was not in their thoughts. So, from these two passages, what are the main? I'm going to ask you all now because I need participation. What are the main excitement words that pop out that led us to what we used to believe about these passages and what they were talking about?
I'm going to back up a little bit. It would be the buildings in New York City.
Okay,
Fireproof.
perfect.
And they couldn't put the fire out.
New York, fire, buildings, fire engines and firemen couldn't put it out.
Made of pitch.
Okay. Made of pitch, and we'll say Revelation 18 also is in one of them. So all of these words, because we saw these exciting words that we had an incredible event in our time, we just read it simply and slapped it together and we called it 9/11. But if you read carefully, and the key word that we want when we're trying to read more carefully, before we get to parable or anything, just the first basic step that any reader should be doing when they are reading something is make sure you understand very clearly what the context is. I think a lot of mistakes can be avoided if we just focus just making sure we understand this, because if you understand this and the context in which this was happening and the details all of a sudden of the entire context don't match what you're trying to apply it to, now you might have a sign that you can't really make that application because that's not what the point of that statement was based on what the context is. So I think a lot could be avoided, which was already the first mistake that was made when the people who are teaching about this one back in the day were not reading that. So this is why he stated in his presentation that this must be shocking to a lot of people in the crowd who some of them were newer back then to the movement, some of them may have been in there longer, but whichever it was, a lot of them, to them, based off of the feedback he was getting, this would have been shocking to based off what they had known up until then. So this was specifically inserted in there to show how important reading correctly and looking at the structure and the pattern and the context and being very careful when you read, how important it is, because something everyone in the movement was believing was this Ellen White statements and coupling it with what was happening in New York. So we're gonna go now back to what the presentation was about and what the whole seminar kind of was about, and that was parable understanding. And the prior presentation, the word parable was looked at in the New Testament. But what we're going to do now is look at that word in the Old Testament. And we're going to introduce a new concept for this seminar, which was the rule of first mention. So the rule of first mention is going to help us define the word parable. And what we mean by the rule of first mention is the first time that a word is mentioned in an author's work, it's in that point where the meaning of that word is established, and that meaning carries through the rest of the work for that author. So we're reading the Bible, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the word parable. We're going to look at it in the Bible where it shows up first. And for the English version, that place is Numbers 22. It's Numbers 23:7, but the story is of Balak, Balaam, and Moab in Israel. The story starts in chapter 22, but we're going to go forward a little bit. So what happens basically, it's the end of the 40 years wandering around for Israel, and they need to get to Canaan, and they have to go through Moab. The Ammonites were already dealt with, but they asked Moab, Balak and the Moabitish people, can we just want to just walk through? We're not going to mess with anything. We just want to go through to the other side, and you're here. We have, there's nowhere else to go. And they decided that that was not okay, and they didn't believe Israel when they said that they were going to be peaceful. So what Balak did, the king of Moab, he got Balaam, which was once a good prophet, and then he apostatized and became a false prophet. But they called Balaam to pronounce curses on Moab, right? And we're going to read verse 1 of chapter 23 real quick here. Let's see here. And Balaam said unto Balak, build me here 7 altars, and prepare me here 7 oxen and 7 rams. So just before this, Balak, the king of Balaam, Balak asked Balaam to curse Israel. He does some sacrifices, and they go to a high place where they can see all of Israel. Now, what happens is that Balaam is going to try to bring a curse upon God's people. Sorry, verse 4, God meets Balaam, and they have a conversation. And God met Balaam, and he said unto him, I have prepared 7 altars, and I have offered upon every altar a bullock and a ram. So who is speaking in verse 4? Is it God or Balaam? In this verse, it's Balaam. So if you're reading it and you're not sure, you need to spend some time and read carefully and see the context. As God comes to see Balaam, Balaam does all the talking. Verse 5, after Balaam has spoken to God his own words, now God puts words in his mouth. So not only can you see contextually that Balaam is speaking in verse 4, just from the grammar, when you see the relationship between verse 4 and 5, it's all Balaam speaking. First, he speaks his own words, and then verse 5, he speaks God's words. So we already see how we're starting to look at these verses, making sure that we take in all the details of the context that we can. And I know that for myself, it was surprising when he goes even to that level, because I never think, well, who's speaking? You just read like you always read. But here, verse 4 again, and God made Balaam, and he said unto him, I have prepared 7 altars, and I have offered upon every altar a bullock and a ram. And you have to sit there and read and make sure you know who's reading. And then, and the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, return unto Balak, and thus thou shalt speak.
So in that verse, it would sound like it's the Lord talking. But if you look at what is said, then you know that it's Balaam saying what he did.
Yeah. And if it's not, easy off the bat when you read this first verse, when you go to the next one, it makes it a little bit easier, because it says, and the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth. So now you have the Lord's word in his mouth, which before, if you do some deductive reasoning, it would have been Balaam's. So verse 6, he returns unto the king, and he returned unto him, and lo, he stood by his burnt sacrifice, he and all the princes of Moab. Verse 7, we'll read. And he took up his parable and said, Balak, the king of Moab, hath brought me from Aram out of the mountains of the east, saying, come, curse me, Jacob, and come, defy Israel. So verse 7 is a story of what Balak says to Balaam. And if you read down to verse 17, you'll see that this is Balaam's parable of Israel. So we have Numbers 23:7, and this is the first parable. If you drop down to verse 18, because the last few verses before 18, the conversation between Balaam and Balak is things are not going right. Have another go. So they set everything up again, and then you have verse 18. And he took up his parable and said, "Rise up, Balak, and hear, hearken unto me, thou son of Zippor." So we see that this is the second time he speaks. He takes up his parable again, and as you read from 19 onwards, he explains the parable. He speaks about it. And then verse 25, and Balak said unto Balaam, neither curse them at all, nor bless them at all. So you see, he is beginning to get frustrated. At 26, Balaam says, I can only speak what God tells me. Balak tries again. Verse 27, he takes him to a different place, and the story continues. And we come to chapter 24, verse 3. Let me just scroll down here a little bit. 24:3, he took up his parable and said, Balaam the son of Beor hath said, and the man whose eyes are open hath said. Again, he is going to give his story, his little parable. Then we're going to drop down to verse 15. And here we have, and he took up his parable and said, Balaam the son of Beor hath said, and the man whose eyes are open hath said. So Balaam has 4 little parables. Some Bibles at the top, they have a little header that says oracles. So a parable, oracle, the same thing. So he has 4 little oracles. And he said he might prove this later. But we're going to ask everyone to take for granted that this is true. In the Bible, the number 4 is a symbol, a symbol of a progressive destruction of a nation. It's a destruction in 4 steps, basically. And it means progressive destruction, but also complete destruction at the very end. And 3 is a number for restoration. None of this is proven, but we're just going to take that for granted for right now. So what he wants, what is it that Balak wants, what's his name? Balaam to do for Moab and
Curse
Israel? What is
Israel.
Okay, so we're going to put Moab here. This is what Moab wants. Israel. So Moab wants a curse on Israel, right? But in this passage, if you curse someone, that brings you, what does that do for you? Because Moab in this situation, in their mindset, they're in trouble. They feel threatened. So they don't feel secure or safe in the situation. That's the reason why Balak called Balaam over, right? So if Moab wants to curse Israel, what does cursing Israel do for them?
Will it be the opposite of curse?
Right. It would bring them a blessing, a safety, or a positive. It would be a positive for them and a negative for Israel. So we're going to put a blessing here. So they want, this is what Moab wants. They want a blessing for them and a curse for Israel. Okay. But what does Balaam do instead for Israel?
A blessing.
Exactly. So in every single time, and each time Balak gets more and more frustrated because the only things that keep coming out of Balaam's mouth are blessings for Israel. So conversely, what would then be, if it's a blessing for Israel, which is the enemy of Moab, what would it be for Moab?
I'll be cursing.
Exactly.
Cursing.
Good. Okay. So what we have are 4 little parables here, and don't forget that what we're doing here is we're looking at the origin, the first mention of the word parable. And what we're doing by doing this is figuring out what the definition of this word is. Okay, this is our goal. We want to know the definition of parable. Because by establishing what the definition of parable is, we'll be able to figure out what that's doing in the Bible for, the rest of the time that we see it. And we'll be able to figure out why it's so important that we're using it. So, we've got, that's a very good, that's a big main point that we need from this. But then what else can we get out of this story? So the premier verse, and the premier in this context that we're talking about it, is the main climactic verse, mainly because it's referring to something important happening that has long consequences, basically. And the most important verse here, the premier verse, is verse 17, 24:17. I'm teaching. Can you put it there? So in verse 17, hang on just a second. It says, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth. So, I shall see him, but not now. When is now?
When Balaam's talking at that time.
At this time. Okay. If we use our rules, let the Bible define itself and be its own expositor. How can we find what that word now means? Because now can mean a little time from now, a long time from now. So
It's not nigh. So it's nigh.
right.
Now and nigh.
Exactly.
Could it be that not now is when the scepter rises out of Israel? So this now happens before the scepter rising out of Israel. No?
Yeah. What we're doing is we have these little, and I forget what they're called.
Semicolon?
Yeah. These are colons, I think. Semicolons is one
Yeah,
comma,
yeah.
one.
Sorry.
I've confused those two. So colons, and what we're doing is we're using that as a little a line, a little chiasm. So we're looking here, I shall see him. And what else? Because this is also one. So I shall see him. What does see mean?
Behold.
Behold. Exactly. So see is behold, now is nigh. And here we have, there shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. So what's star?
The star is the scepter.
Exactly. And then what is Jacob?
Be Israel.
Israel. And we know Jacob is Israel from the story of Jacob and Israel. But this is just to illustrate that, there's a new principle being introduced here in this series. Reunion is repeat and enlarge. So this is the principle of repeat and enlarge that we're using, and chiastic structure. So here's another one, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and shall destroy all the children of Seth.
Smite and destroy.
Yep.
Moab,
Moab,
children of Sheth.
Yep. So we are able to get an incredible amount of information, and the Bible was able to be its own, defining structure. It can explain itself. It's its own dictionary. And this is another illustration for the people in the audience at that time, the power of parables, how much information you can gather. So this is a repeat and enlarge and a little bit of chiasm, and we use this here as a chiastic structure. So when we go back up here to what we saw just now, I shall see him, but not now, and it's not nigh. So if it's not now, when is it? It's not in the past, right?
Right.
So when is it?
Later?
Later. So it's in the future.
Because 9 means near, so it's not near, so it would be in the
Yeah.
future.
Right. So Balaam is giving a message about something that's happening in the future. What do we know that is? It's very basic. A message about something happening in the future.
David?
No. What is that when we give a message of something happening in the future in the Bible?
Oh, prophecy.
Prophecy.
Prophecy. Exactly. So we go back to these 4 parables of his, and none of these things are happening now. They're going to happen in the future. And he took up his parable. So what are these parables actually?
Prophecy.
These are stories of things that are going to happen in the future. So what we see here is that parables are prophecies. And we were able to gather this using parables in the structures and the patterns here in these verses, using the rule of first mention and parable understanding to define the word parable and to see how deep it can go. All right. So if that's still not enough for the people who were there, we can also see, so out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. If you're gonna destroy, hold on, hang on just a second. I've got something lost here. Where did it go? Yeah, so anyway, sorry. So out of Jacob shall come in the future. So it's not now. So it's in the future that this is happening. So Balaam is giving a prophecy of something happening in the future. So parable is a prophecy. This is the definition of parable using the rule of first mention and allowing the Bible to be its own expositor. And so this is why it's so important. But if you still don't believe it, we have another quote by Ellen White here. And she's going to explain something. This is from Desire of Ages, page 60, paragraph 1. The wise men had seen a mysterious light in the heavens upon that night when the glory of God flooded the hills of Bethlehem. As the light faded, a luminous star appeared and lingered in the sky. It was not a fixed star nor a planet, and the phenomenon excited the keenest interest. That star was a distant company of shining angels, but of this the wise men were ignorant. They were impressed that the star was of special import to them. They consulted priests and philosophers and searched the scrolls of the ancient records. The prophecy of Balaam had declared, "There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel." Numbers 24:17. Could this strange star have been sent as a harbinger of the promised one? The Magi had welcomed the light of heaven sent truth. Now it was shed upon them in brighter rays. Through dreams, they were instructed to go in search of the newborn prince. So she's quoting Numbers 24:17, which was our premier text, which was, the end of those 4 little parables. And what does she call this message that Balaam gave?
The harbinger. The prophecy of Balaam.
Yep. So she also agrees that parable
Equals prophecy.
is prophecy. Hold on, I gotta move the chat. So you have multiple witnesses that that is in fact what a parable is. And since our entire identity rests upon the fact that we follow prophecy so that we know where we are in time, you cannot disconnect prophecy and parable from each other.
Right, we saw that last week, that in 1919, they separated parables they disconnected the morality, the moral stories and the prophetic stories
The spirit, yeah. Yep.
of
So
parables.
he says here next that we cannot read for a morality only anymore. We have to read for the spiritual prophecy side of it, and that has to do with parables, and that's how we have to read. So what parables we used here, that chiasm, we can actually draw these out. So when we're reading, to kind of help us, we can make little pictures to help us. So he's often used a little, what are these? The little balances, right? So you have a center pivot point, and then you have two objects facing each other. And you want to keep this balanced. And what is really interesting about that and how we do all of this, first let's do this. So if you have Moab here and Israel here, if you do something to this side, you have to do something to this side as well so that it stays balanced. And another way we can draw that in a little picture structure is like a seesaw for kids. They have little bars here and they'll seesaw back and forth. So we do the same thing here. So what we had Israel and we had Moab. And Moab wanted a curse on Israel and they wanted a blessing for themselves. But what happened instead, Moab wanted Balaam to come here to Israel and curse them, and that would in turn give Moab a blessing. Okay. So in this story, all we have is what Balaam did to Israel, but we can infer if you're gonna curse Israel, Moab is gonna receive a blessing. But what Balaam did instead is he blessed Israel, which in turn we can now find out, because if you curse here, now this is going to go down and you want to keep it balanced. So you have to add something right here to keep this balanced structure. And we add that if they get a blessing, then Moab gets a curse. And now we maintain that balanced structure. What's really fascinating about this is when you understand that God literally built the Bible with these structures already in place for in the future. So it's God literally, when you read a story, he likes to insert balance into that story. He likes to insert patterns and organized thoughts and themes. So it's really interesting how God just designed all of this to work together, because he's the author in the end. So I just thought that was really interesting. So what parables allow us to do is to find the hidden information. And that is, you can have a number of points and you can be missing one little bit of information that just reading through normally you wouldn't know. But by using parables, you're able to dig out that little piece of information. And once you have the structure in place, it goes pretty quickly. And then you find, and it looks, I mean, it's really a sturdy argument when you go back and look at that's, how it is. So you can have a feeling of assurance knowing that you actually know what the passage is talking about. So when someone comes along and tries to give a wonky interpretation, you have, you know, better defenses up, better armor up to be able to, you know, contend with that and say, wait a minute, because this, and this, and it reads like this. And actually the context is this. And what it's actually talking about is this. And look, also Ellen White agrees with that. So you have, you know, all this information now. Tomorrow in the next presentation, he's gonna go a little bit more into this topic, this story, and kind of try to finish it up. But this story is from Desire of Ages. And if you go back, the whole point of this, if you read that first sentence, the main subject of this was the wise men. Okay, so the wise men had seen a mysterious light in the heavens upon that night when the glory of God flooded the hills of Bethlehem. And the wise is all connected to Matthew 25, 1-13, the wise and the foolish virgins. All these patterns, all these contexts are all interconnecting. And here the wise men were able to ask priests and philosophers. They searched the scrolls and ancient records. And this is what our job is. The point is to find what was promised that was going to come so that we know when it's happening. And that is, if we're going to be wise virgins, that's what we're going to do. And what wise virgins do, based off of all these stories and these contexts, is wise virgins use parable understanding in our time. That's who we are. So if you want to be in this movement for any length of time, if you want to remain here and be successful here, we have to stretch our parable muscles and keep practicing and reading and trying. It's the most difficult thing to sit there and you want to read a bunch of chapters, but you have to go so slow. You have to slow down so much and reread the same thing over and over again and really break it down to be able to actually understand what's happening. And it is a lot of work and it is taxing, but the payoff is worth it. And as we can see here, you learn so much more that way. And if you're reading something over and over again, and at the end you don't understand what it says anyways, then that whole procedure was a waste of time anyways, right? And so that is our lesson for today. I think he gave some homework out. He wanted everyone to read page 60 in Desire of Ages, and I think it was chapter 40 in Patriarchs and Prophets. It was about the story of Balaam. But other than that, that's it. It was kind of quick. I'm sorry. But yeah, I hope that was clear.
Maybe somebody between us all, we can come up with some other examples of some verses and do a little exploring on our own.
Mm-hmm. I'm tapped, so I don't know.
Well, I know that he mentions, and that's coming up, I'll be doing those notes, Psalm 78 being, anyways, maybe we can go into Psalm 78 and just put it up on the screen and take a few.
Yeah, I'll stop screen share if you want to go for it.
You want to do that? Oh, I was hoping you would. I can if you want. You're the doodler.
Oh, you want to do the, okay, I see what you're saying. Psalm which one?
Psalm 78, because that's part of this Martinique study, and maybe it'd be good exercise for us since you're finished early. Then it'd be good exercise for us before we get to those chapters or to those presentations. I know I'm doing one, and I think your mom's doing the other one. I think there was two.
Yeah, is it tomorrow though for hers?
No.
Okay.
No. Psalm 78 was on my mind because I know that he goes through that, but it is part of this seminar. So I just thought it might be, if anybody else had any thoughts, any ideas of what you want to do for the rest of the time, I'm open for, anybody else has something else they want to talk about.
Hang on. Where is this?
Oh, I do remember this study. I think I have this one already transcribed. Because he goes into Asaph and the maskil, what it is, what it means.
I'm just cleaning it up a little.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't think we'll get very far into it. We could stay on one passage for the whole time if we're putting our minds together.
Well, I do miss these, so I'm down.
Yeah, when we were doing this, yeah.
It just takes so much time out when you have a whole,
And maybe whatever we do here, save it.
yeah.
And we can revisit it on other nights or on other times that we're doing these studies, if we run into having extra time.
Mhm. We're probably not going to make it that far. So, okay. Where did you go? Sorry, got to get back up to the top. I don't know how we got so low down there.
You what?
It got low down on my notes app. I don't know how it just went all the way to the bottom for some reason. Okay.
So verse 1, maskil. Is that how you say that? Maskil? In letting the Bible define itself, it's a maskil of Asaph. Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. Who's Asaph? And what's a maskil? Give ear means he wants us to listen, right?
Yeah. So we're going to leave that. We can put that here. Why is, you know what it is? It's because I chose the wrong size and I forgot that I did that. Okay.
And I don't remember how quickly he goes to Strong's on these. Whether or not we want
Well,
to put it in there.
we have two things here. Give ear, O my people, to my law. And then we
This
have
is
that.
a repeat and enlarge.
Right.
The word
Um,
mask, the words maskil of Aesop are not to be read as the verse. It's the title of the chapter. If you look in your Bible, and
It is verse 1.
yeah,
It is actually verse 1. Or is it not saved?
not in my Bible. Not in my Bible. It isn't.
Okay. I
That's
don't
the
have my,
title of.
yeah, I don't have my Bible in here. My actual Bible, I have my phone app.
yeah,
No,
it's in
yeah,
the
'cause
verse, I think.
I'm
in
gonna
the
look.
paper Bible. It's not.
It's written as a title, right?
Yeah, and totally on top of above the numbers in
Yeah,
blue lettering.
That way in
My-
the app as well.
Title.
So I
Mas-
think we need to know what a maskil is and who Asaph is and what Asaph
Poem.
represents.
It's a form of instruction. I mean, that's by looking up
Right.
the Hebrew.
Form of instruction, a didactic poem.
Yeah,
Didactic poem.
there you go. And also a song
and
or
just-
a poem. A song or a poem.
So
And
that
there's just-
actually is in my Bible as well. It's just a title. It's not part of the verse. I don't know why the Ellen White app did that.
Right,
but
it's in the Bible. It's not part of the verse.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Okay,
So could this be saying the parable of Asaph? Maskil
What?
parable?
Yeah, we're gonna work
I
our way
think-
there.
Yeah. So I'm assuming from what Elaine said so far, the point is to go step by step through the chapter and see what we find out, and if we could figure it out from context and parables. So the first one here is, give ear, O my people, to my law, incline your ears to the words of my mouth. So your and my people is referring to the same group, right? Give ear, incline ear. So give and incline are going to be the same, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's
And
what
so
repeated in
law
large.
and words of my mouth.
When
Yes.
it means to listen, to hear,
Mhm.
hear.
Yeah. And we can
Hear is
just,
a little bit more than listen. It's because hearing is understanding.
I don't like how I did that. I'll just put red here because it's going to get, and then ears. It's a little cattywampus here, but it's the same. It's a repeated and large. So verse 2, I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter a dark saying of old. Oh, didn't we do this before?
I think so, but it's been a while.
Yeah, dark saying just popped out
I
at me.
think no, we did 2 Samuel. We did it where it's in 2 Samuel, same chapter. Remember?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
It was 2 Samuel.
Yeah. Okay, I remember. I'll open.
But I think in 2 Samuel it didn't say maskil of Asaph.
my mouth in a parable. Now, we have the added benefit of have already looked up this word in the first mention in our just study that we just did. So what do we know a parable is?
It's prophecy.
Good. Okay. And that we can refer back to the other study. I will open my mouth in a parable or a prophecy.
But
I
this
will
is gonna
utter.
define it as a dark saying of old.
Right. So a parable is a prophecy. What is a dark saying of old then? It's a prophecy.
It's a prophecy.
Yep. I will. Which is, it is literally, you can describe a prophecy as a dark saying of old that's going to talk about or something happening in the future. Will utter dark.
Because dark would be without light, right?
Right.
So something hard to
Mhm.
see, mystery.
Right. Until the light.
Exactly. Until there's light.
Yeah. Also, but in this context, dark sayings of old. I would also, I'm just gonna start, I'll just do this for the obvious ones. Open and utter. And then parable
So it means to speak
and dark sayings of old.
a parable, to speak.
Yeah, so would this for dark, I don't know that we can pull this out of here, but dark can mean a negative type of prophecy, like a curse, which is also referring back to the study we just did, right?
True.
Or it could just mean hidden.
Wouldn't dark kind of mean prophecy? It says dark saying, so wouldn't the dark mean kind of a prophecy too? I mean,
Oh, yeah, we did say that, but the point is that a prophecy can be a good prophecy or a bad prophecy. It could be a prophecy of something good that's going to happen, as we know there's plenty of those, and a prophecy of something bad that's going to happen, right?
True.
A prophecy of a blessing or a prophecy of a cursing.
Right.
But we know in the first verse, he's talking about his law would be in the words of his mouth.
Phil, you said something and we didn't catch it.
Yeah, also, it could just mean that it's hidden.
Yeah, could it be like dark, like meaning that hidden, like, like when they say a person he's a dark, he's dark, meaning that his mind isn't clear, he's
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking, like without light, so it hadn't
unrevealed.
unrevealed. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But it was something that was given before, right?
Yeah.
Given but not yet understood.
Yes.
I'm going to further specify that if we're going to save this. So given, but not yet understood. And I like what Elaine said, because this is still repeat and enlarge of verse 1 as well. Because it's still listen, my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old.
Right, right.
So it's a lengthy introduction. You know what I mean? Like a preamble. I'm letting you know. It's like when Elder Tess or Elder Parmenter say, okay, what we're going to talk about today is this, and this, and we're going to focus on this. This is giving you a warning of what the discussion is about to be. So the discussion is the law. It's words of God's mouth. It's a parable. And it's a dark saying. Dark sayings of old. And all of these are all combined here to mean the same thing, isn't it? Through the parable thing here, the
I
repeat
think
and
so.
enlarge.
Like I said, I don't remember if he goes into this more to break down what Maskell of Asaph is, or if he went to definitions right away. And we already started to talk about that. A few of us did. And Lana posted in there Asaph. Asaph means gatherer, right? And Maskell is a song or a poem or instruction. So there's a gatherer that's going to give a song. And that's what this poem, that's what this chapter is about, is a gatherer who's going to sing a song.
And it's all repeat and enlarge.
It says that the song is the message.
Right. And who do we know sings a song?
The other 44,000.
Right. And a song is a message. Right.
Okay, we got all that. Okay, so back to this. These are all pretty much, can we agree that these are kind of the same? It's
Repeat
kind
and
of,
enlarge, right?
Right.
yeah. We'll just stick that there somewhere. I don't know. 78:3, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. Okay, so all of these, they have, this is now talking about these, right? So all of these are the things which
Heard and known.
Because our fathers have told us.
I don't know that this one sentence is a repeat and enlarge, though, is it? Because
Well,
it's just a
I think so.
comma there.
Well, we wouldn't have heard it and known it if our fathers hadn't told us.
Yeah, I just don't know because it says and. Because it's not just fathers, it could be random folks. Is this fathers as in your personal father or fathers as in the general people?
Ancestors, all our people around us.
So the dark sayings, the law, the words of his mouth, the parables, we heard and have known, and our fathers told us, have told us.
Yeah, that structure is weird to me because it's like our fathers have told us and we've heard and known. I don't know. It seems kind of flipped.
Yeah, because told would be heard, right?
Yeah. Interesting why it does
We
that.
heard, they told. So heard and told. But known has got to be more significant because it's one thing to hear, it's another thing to know.
Hear me out. Personally, I don't know if this is accurate. I'm just reaching, 100% just reaching. But it seems like fathers is a separate group because initially the first person to tell you a law and a parable and a prophecy, who's the first person? It's not God directly speaking to his people, but who is it through? A prophet, right?
Yeah.
Because that's usually who's screaming at Israel all the time. Elijah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, always Ezekiel, right? It's a messenger, a prophet sent. And then if the people are good, then the fathers, the ancestors, the people who know those will tell the kids and pass that information down. I don't know. I'm just reaching and just thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking also because it says that a maskil is a song enforcing some lesson of wisdom. When the children of Israel came out of Egypt, they were supposed to enforce it to their children. It's like a educational song that has the lesson in it. So the parents are supposed to tell it to the children, the children, when become parents, tell it to their children. So something like that.
Yeah. So who's talking here? It's the gatherer, right? Right?
Right. Wouldn't it be Asaph? Because it's his poem.
Yeah. Okay, so Asaph.
This is so interesting. I just looked up the word maskil, and on ResearchGate, there's one of the publications, and it says that this study suggests that word maskil in the heading of a psalm is a musical instruction that denotes a specific responsive mode of performance defined as complex antiphony because it involves the gathering of distant segments of the text through a dialogue between choirs, each singing a different section of the psalm. So it's like a performance where several groups, or it's like interactive. So the person who is singing, not the singing.
It's a musical.
Yes.
That's cool. With chorus and everything, probably. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly like the song of who was it? The sister of Moses. That they sang that song when they conquered something, and the women were one set of women were singing a question and the other ones were answering. So it's like a dialogue.
I feel like Israel did that a lot, though.
Well, that was one form of education.
Yeah.
Because a song, once it goes in your brain, it's difficult to take it out.
Yeah, we don't do that as well today, I don't think. We have the hymns, but it's not like if you read through the Psalms, the ones that are songs, it's like a whole novel. It's not even, we just have some verses denoting a few specific points, but they had an entire history in a song. It's pretty cool. Thank you, Lana.
So I want to add this in here when you were talking in verse 3 about we have heard and known and our fathers have told us, right?
Mhm.
Looking down to the next verse, it goes on to the children and then showing it to the next generation. This is a progression going on here. So you have us, which we won't count first, but we have the fathers told us. So fathers is 1, us is 2, and we're not going to hide them for our children is 3, and then showing it to the generations is the 4th. So you have 4 generations going on right here.
Whoa. Let me bring that size down a smidge. Fathers, us. Will not hide it from there, the children. Generation. Oh, it's still too big. Hang on. Generations to come. So we have 4 generations between the 2 verses. Okay. So Asaph was the one that meant gatherer, right?
ASAP means gatherer, yeah.
Okay. The Song of the Gatherer. Okay. So we will not hide them. Them, again, referring back to the initial list.
The words of his mouth, the parable, the dark
Yeah.
sayings.
Who's there? I need better understanding on how you get the 4 generations. So we will not hide them, the sayings, from their children. Whose children? The father's children? Our fathers told us, we is us, will not hide them, the dark sayings, from their, who's there?
Well, wouldn't the children be telling their generations? So the children showing it to the generation to come.
So we have heard them. Our fathers told us. So we and us in verse 3 is the same. That's us. That would, well, I don't know, can we say it's us, whoever's this time. And we is us in verse 4 will not hide them, these sayings, from their, is that the father's children? Showing.
I was wondering that, but I'm not sure. That is a weird way to say it.
So we have to know who their children are.
Well, can I bring the Septuagint into this?
Certainly.
Because it's got something in there. Ooh, interesting. So this is what that one's saying. So this version made it more complex, but this one says they were not hid from their children to a second generations. The fathers declaring their praises of the Lord and his mighty acts and his wonders which he wrought.
So maybe the we and the us are not the, They were not hid from their children.
Feels like it skipped a generation. They were not hid from their children to a second generation. That's still kind of weird. Still kind of weird. The fathers declaring the praise of the Lord and his mighty acts and his wonders which he wrought. They were not hid from their children to a second generations. Hmm. Maybe we're getting hung up on something that's not too consequential. I don't know.
How did you get the Septuagint? Did you get that out of
Eastward.
Eastward? And
Yeah.
which Bible is it? The KJV plus?
Oh, good question.
What's the tab that you're?
Yeah,
you're
yeah, is it Brenton? I think it's Brenton. Yeah, it's Brenton. So
You have
on
to
my
Okay, I see it.
Excuse me. Yeah. Okay, if you don't have it downloaded it, you won't have it on your eSword.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got Brenton. Okay.
on my parallel thing, I have KJV, KJV Plus, and Brenton. Those are the only ones I use for the Old Testament. Let's see here. They were not hid from their children to second generation. Yeah, that's just giving me a headache, to be honest.
Here, let me help your headache.
Yay.
Looking at this, the words here, you have, and I forget where we covered this one time before, but you have, okay, where was I? Sorry. Oh, here it is. From their children, right? And in Strong's here, instead of 3 words, you only have 2. You have 4480 and you have 1121. So I think it's something to do with the translation that this there gets put into it. That's what I'm just seeing. I see 3 words there and then only 2 words it's coming from. And that happens frequently.
Okay. So it's just kind of like a meh thing. It's probably just talking about all the generations of passed down informations.
Yeah, it seems like that to me, that's what it is. It's, their children. Well, there is the whole group.
Gotcha. That's weird because you'll if it's like there's a line and there's me and then there's us and Asa kind of goes between. Keeps flopping around. Sometimes it's us, he includes himself, sometimes it's just me, and sometimes it's just they.
The song does it.
Yeah.
The gatherer does it. The song does it.
Well, it complicates things. It sounds indecisive like me. I do that a lot when I talk because I can't figure out what I'm going to say.
But also verse 4 gives you a different look or definition, if that's the way to say it, of what it is they're saying, because this is going to take us even further, I believe, because in verse 4, it's what are they not hiding? We said it's the law, the words of his mouth, and we said it's all that. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generations to come the praises of the Lord, because it's defining the praise that what they're not going to hide is the praises of the Lord, his strength and his wonderful works that he hath done.
And then if you go on to verse 5, it talks about them saying, he commanded it to our fathers that they should make it known to their children ad nauseum, to their children, to their children, to their children, to their children.
Yeah, so it's just describing all of their past history.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it still
But
goes
isn't
because
it-
all of those things are the same.
Isn't it that the children is the last generation?
where do you get we know that if we go to eunuchs or virgins, we're at the last generation. Where do you get from this, the last generation? It says generation to come.
Generation as a singular is not generations.
Right, generation to come.
So that is the children, isn't that?
Yeah, why? What's the problem?
No, I'm saying that should be the last generation.
So I think if I understand correctly, are you saying that the children are the generation to come?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that looks right. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come. So the children are the generation to come, I think. Well, let's look at that Septuagint one again. They were not hid from their children to a second generation.
The fathers carrying prayer of the Lord to the children, right? Because it's explaining the fathers declaring the praises of the Lord and his mighty acts and his wonders. Who would the fathers declare to? Is it the children, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the second generation it's talking about.
Man, why is it plural there?
I know, isn't that weird? I don't like that it's doing this.
Second generation.
Here's generation to come, one, and here's generations.
I know that we have symbology and that we have the 4 generations, but the Jews, they had children and generations after generations after generations, and it was their job to continue to teach their children, until the end. And so they weren't stuck on that, you know what I'm saying?
Well, the 4th generation thing is something that we understand from other passages, right? And we use those other passages and understanding it in a prophetic way to apply it to everything else. But
Right.
in their original context and what they were talking about, is that what they meant? Were they trying to specify just 4 generations? Or was it just trying to make a over generalization of all history will know what God has done because we will tell them and continue to tell?
That's the second part is what I'm seeing, that they're not saying, that they're going to continue to tell everybody. That's what I see.
Yeah, I think I see that too. I know we could probably apply 4 generations in there, but I
I'm
think
sure we could.
originally
Right.
they were just meaning for perpetuity.
Right. So I think there's both.
Yeah.
What was meant and what we can see is in symbolic prophecy.
Is that okay with everyone else? Someone see anything different? So I'm just going to put that we have that all generations and 4 generations.
And the
'Cause
all
that's the point.
Yeah, the all generations would be literal and the 4 generations would be spiritually or symbolic, right?
I'm getting better with my handwriting, you guys. I hope you notice.
I have noticed it looks good. You're doing great.
I have to intend to do a good job and not just hurry through it. And it's
Nice.
rough. Anyways, is that okay? Is there anything else we can add to that? Because the second part, I don't think we went in it too much. Where is it? The praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he hath done. The praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works which he hath done. And then here it's declaring the praises of the Lord and his mighty acts. So acts and works. I need a different color. So works, acts, and we'll do and his wondrous wonders. Mighty acts. Wait, no, I did this wrong. What's happening here? And his strength. Strength. Okay, that's what I messed up. So his strength is the mighty axe. And this isn't doing like, because this is just two different Bible writings. So I'm not trying to do a parable thing here. This is just trying to match up what these two are saying. That's different. Wonderful works. Because it seemed like there was three. So wonders which he wrought. So those are supposed to be the same thing, just said differently. I'm gonna erase it though, because it looks weird. Okay, do we go to the next verse? Everyone got quiet, and this is a participation work here.
We're thinking.
Okay.
I am. Anyways.
Just a question. I'm thinking of this. Can you summarize that, Adriana? On the, the word you were using was from Strong's on generation.
Was I?
On verse 4 of 78.
You mean like the difference between this one and the other one?
No, I'm asking about the verse 70 or verse 4 of chapter 78. Yeah.
I didn't look at that in the Strong's.
Yeah, in red.
No. So I did that when David was pointing out that we have in verse 3 fathers, and we also have us in the red, and then in the next verse you have children and then generations to come. So we were pulling out something that looked like 4 generations in there.
All right.
Have fathers, us, our children, and their generations to come.
Yeah, I was trying to follow that. And then you wrote notes on the right.
Yeah.
All generations. Literal. And then.
Yeah, so this was just because what we're looking at, we're trying to figure out what the context is trying to talk about, because we have a prophetic understanding of generations, the 4 generations, that means something to us. And we can see that in certain places in the Bible. And it has a spiritual symbolic meaning for us where we can, see applications being made with it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the author of this passage here is trying to say. So you can have 2 different things going on here at the same time. One can be the author's just saying, we're going to tell this to our kids, kids, all generations. Everyone's always going to know what God did for us. And then you have a spiritual application, which might be pointing to 4 generations and the implications that go with that. So that's why I just put them here.
Yeah, that just makes it clear for me when it's summarized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime, you just let me know.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that now.
So, am I to understand correctly? This is, a bit confusing. So, between the verse 3 and verse 4. So the 4 generations between verse 3 and verse 4. You got the Father, you got us, you got children, and you got the generation to come.
Mm-hmm.
And you got we is Asaph. Asaph, does Asaph represent teachers? It says we is representing Asaph. So those who are the teachers, those who are the teachers of didactic poems or didactic songs or parables. So we will not hide it. It's the fathers that told us. That's the we. And from their children, so there is the father. Right? And then generation to come. So that's the next generation. So that's 4 generations.
Okay, that would make more sense from because our confusion of what does there mean. So if we is representing teachers or the gatherers or let's I don't know how I'm gonna do this. We hold on.
And
We
just a little quick note, that Samuel study that we did was not this chapter. So I'm not sure where we did this before. Maybe we actually did go through Psalm 78 a long time ago.
I probably still have. So we in verse 4, we in verse 4 is referring to
The teachers.
teachers. Because then that would make sense where you have Israel is going to be messy. So you have the children of Israel and you have the teeny tiny ones, the children, right? And then the teachers are over on this side. So they're going to tell their children. So these are there. And
Yeah,
the
the
teachers are
father's
telling their
children.
yeah. So the teachers are on the outside looking at them, Israel.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Can
We'll
I
leave that
add,
in.
we can leave it? Okay, because I just wanted to add that in my Bible, somebody preached on this. And generation number 1 was the fathers in verse 3. Generation 2 was the we, because it says our fathers. So we was generation 2. Generation 3 is verse 6, the generation to come. And the 4th generation was the end of verse 6, their children. That's how I have that's what's notated in my Bible. Not that it's the gospel. But interesting thing I wrote next to the name of Asaph is that he is a Levite. And Wikipedia affirms that. So this is kind of interesting.
Okay, we'll put that down.
Wikipedia says, yes, he's a Levite. And so
a literal Levite, right? Literal.
Yeah.
A literal descendant of Levi. He's a literal Levite. So, just for whatever that's for, I don't know.
if Wikipedia starts giving us prophetic advice.
I just said we didn't look up
I'm
David.
pretty sure he was one of the sons, not direct sons of Aaron, but they came from the Levites.
Okay.
They came from the Levites.
Yeah.
Asaph was a descendant of Gershom,
And Gershom
the
was
son of Levi.
Yeah. Oh, the son of Levi.
So he was the grandson. Yes, so he was the grandson of Levi.
Okay.
Levi was a Levite. That's what David just read to me to read to you.
That actually again bolsters up more that we can refer to the teachers also, which is what I think it was Fel who was saying this. Because I think it's hard to get our minds wrapped around in the people of that time, but I think for Israelites, their house status, their group status, who was a Levite and who wasn't, meant a lot. And when someone who was a Levite spoke, it probably meant different than when a regular person of Israel from a different tribe spoke. You know what I mean? Because they were considered the teachers, the Levites and the priests.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
I'm going to add that here. Thank you, Kathy. And Wikipedia.
Yeah, that was David's contribution, Wikipedia.
Thank you. So we're just adding as much information as we can. I don't think I'll really ever erase anything. We could just keep adding more info to have it there because I think it helps.
Yeah, no real application, just putting information together.
Yeah, exactly. Just things we were observing basically. And we have to stay unbiased, which I don't know how you do that, but I think that's the best way is just pop whatever information you find and add it all up on there. So yeah, I can see how that can mean we as in teachers. Maybe further on we go, we might see that again. We'll see, but we can keep an eye out for it now that we have that idea there. For he established, let's go to verse 5, I guess. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers that they should make them known to their children.
So another repeat and enlarge, established, appointed, testimony, law.
Okay, let me write that
Jacob,
out. 'Cause
Israel.
Maybe it's the pen. Maybe we can blame the pen for my horrible. For he established. Appointed. Comma. Which you commanded our fathers.
So the he here is from the previous verse would be the Lord, right? The praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works he established. I'm sorry, I'll let you finish.
No. That totally that's totally fun then. But yeah, I think I agree with you there. That they should make them.
Could you remind me why did we choose Psalm 78 tonight?
I knew it was a great place to go look at parables.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. I couldn't remember.
Well, when we were, first discussing it, this is the first thing that came to my head.
Right. Okay.
There's plenty of places to go. I just knew that this.
Well, it was good though because we had already established what parable was, which was pretty useful here.
Right.
And now we've got Jacob and Israel again.
Right.
Which made an appearance in Balaam's prophecy. So
right.
It's a smooth transition.
I also remember that in one of the departments, there's, I think it was a parable too, that they spent 8-10 hours on only like 6 verses of 78, Psalm 78. Just really.
Oh no. What else is there to get?
Oh, hours, you mean hours, right?
Yeah.
Hours, well, classes, each class is an hour, so it's 8 hours.
Classes, is that what you said? Okay. Yeah, they did. And it was someplace before Martinique, because in the Martinique studies, if I remember correctly, he references where they did it. And then I think it was in Brazil. So if we wanted to go back, I'm pretty sure it was Brazil, but I might be wrong.
Which verses was it?
70, the first 6, Psalm 78. doing.
Verse 6 and what else?
No, the first 6 verses, he said.
Oh, really? Oh no. What else is there?
And we'll think we'll
How
get
did it-
there in a flash. Nope.
Oh man. Okay. All right.
Y-
Well,
know
we have
that-
to bring in outside literature now because I don't know where else to go.
Do you know that the parable number 8 and 9 is on Psalm 78, right? Elaine's doing that on Wednesday the 23rd, and Christina's doing it on hers on the 25th.
Right. I think I said
Oh,
that. Yeah.
so you guys know.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the schedule. I'm like, whoa, because I was looking to see our notes before, because I'm sure we've gone through this, but I couldn't find anything in the notes except for what's coming up.
Yeah. Well, I did say in the beginning that Psalm 78 is coming up, that I'm doing one of them and Christina's doing the other one.
Yes,
Right.
but
Sure.
the title says that, but there's no, I mean, the only mention is that when he says that the masculine of Asaph is the one that's presenting the parable.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't go in the structure of the, chapter to say anything about it. It is actually Matthew 13.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Thank you.
All right, let's go back to verse 1. Let's see what else could there be, because now I want to know. Incline your, like, what? Okay, hold on. Oh, the Brenton thing is weird for verse 1. It says the instruction instead of Maskell, which is not a song, but I think I like song better.
Oh yeah. I found the chapter. I found the spot because I have my transcribed notes here. I don't know if you want to hear any of it.
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking for it earlier, but glancing through, but now I have found it where it's, okay, let's see. Verse 14:3, what is their name? That must be, I think it's Psalm 78 he's talking about. Because he's trying to figure out where it said Psalm 78. Go back in there. So I might have to back up a little bit further. Pick up a word, same with always, and you have a repeating pattern. Okay, so the pattern of the church will be the same as the world. The reason why that's important is because we know in Revelation 14, verses 1-5, what's the subject? The 144,000. After introducing the 144,000, what do they do? What are they doing? Not where are they? What are they doing? Verse 3.
Wait, hold on. Who was where did the 144,000 get introduced?
He's getting up to Maskell of Asaph.
Oh, okay.
Getting up to Maskell. I backed up a little bit. So he's talking about Revelation 14, 1-5, the 144,000. And what are they doing? Not where are they, but what are they doing? Verse 3, we know because of what we just studied. Verse 3, what are they doing? Let me ask a different question. What's their name? Verse 14:3, we just read, what is their name? And this is where he says their name is the Maskell of Asaph. We probably have to back up a little bit. And it says, why? Because they're singing a didactic poem. So Revelation 14:3, the 144,000 are the Maskell of Asaph because they're singing a didactic poem. And the didactic poem, what is it that they're singing? It's a message that gathers people, because Asaph is a gatherer who gathers God's people together. And then he goes to Matthew 24, who gathers the people. 24:31, angels don't gather. Who gathers the people? It's the Maskell of Asaph that gathers with his song of instruction, his instructive song, which if you're talking about instruction, you're talking about teachers, which is what Fell brought into it, right?
Yeah.
If it's an instructive song, then it's teachers. It's an instructive message. And what message is that? It's the everlasting gospel. That's how you collect people together, with the message, the everlasting gospel. you gather people together. Matthew says angels do it, and we say the Maskil of Asaph does that. Revelation 14:3 says 144,000 do that. So as they're singing this song, what happens in verse 6? So 14:6, Revelation 14:6, I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the didactic poem of the Maskil of Asaph. As he sang the song of Moses, the 144,000 sing. So can we see how we tie all these concepts together? It doesn't say the song of Moses in chapter 14, but it says it in chapter 15. So I want us to see that Revelation 14:6-11, the three angels' messages, is the poem, is the message that the 144,000 give to who? It says it in verse 6, to all the world. So this message to the world here, you're going to have people standing up giving this message. We need to understand how God will deal with the world. How is he going to do that? So that group of people who are going to give some instruction to the world, we call it, the group of people, we call it the three angels' messages. But Matthew 13 says we can deal with the world, but we also need to deal with the church, which is an agreement with Daniel 8, verse 14, because he was talking about the 2,300 days previously.
Wait. Before you keep going.
Mhm.
If all of that connects to say that the Maskil of Asaph, is the song that the 144,000 used to deal with the church and the world, I don't know how you get world out of this, but you do have specified Jacob and Israel.
Yeah,
So where did that come from? All that you were just saying?
that I'm reading. It's
Yeah.
from the notes from number 7?
Also number 9.
Number 9, yeah, number 9, thank you.
Do you have the whole thing?
It's not edited yet, but yeah, I have just the transcribed notes.
Can you send it to me, please? Because I did something and I erased mine after I did the whole thing.
Okay, this is number 9 though, and you're doing number 10, right?
No, I have number 9.
Chris,
Oh,
would you double check that?
Yeah, number 10 is the next one.
we know that.
Christina is doing number 9 and Elena's doing number 8.
Did I do the wrong one?
That's funny.
You did the wrong one.
I have Elaine down for number 8 on
But
Wednesday.
that's Psalm 78, Psalm 78 too, right?
Psalm 78. You're doing number 8, Psalm 78 1.
Number 8.
Christina is doing 9, Psalm
Yeah,
78
well,
number 2.
I got my
Well-
work cut for me tonight. Well, I'm glad we had this discussion.
Me too.
Oh,
it's
that
not
was
a
so
loss.
funny.
I don't know how I did that. Okay, I'll send it to you. I'll send
Okay,
it to
thank
you.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good job, team.
Well, good thing we had this discussion. I would have been way off.
Hey, Lucina, when you were talking about Parable 78, Elder Parmenter doing that, were you referring to the one where he did it in the school of prophets in Brazil?
You talking to me?
Logina.
Logina.
You know what? All I remember, I think he mentioned it in the very beginning of this parable number 1. I think when he was
Yeah.
saying how
Okay.
they
I
could
just
spend hours. Yeah.
I just did some research, and I found at the Brazil School of the Prophets, they did a whole lot of videos, 64 of them, but but they did 9 of those videos were on Psalm 8 or 78. I'm sorry, Psalm 78. 9 of those videos were on Psalm 78. I can send you the link to the playlist. And it starts, the first one, it starts down at like number 50.
And, you know, I don't know about you guys, but for myself, because that's at the time, those came out at the, the Her 46 and what he did. I never went through all of his in Brazil. I rarely miss anything that either one of them does. But for me, because I was transcribing all of the 46 1 week at a time, and doing that, I never wound up going back to all of his in Brazil. But that's where I think he mentioned it. If you already said that, yeah, they're in Brazil.
There were so many things coming out at the same
once,
time
yeah.
at once. We
That
couldn't
was
keep up.
one chunk that I missed was the
Yeah.
Brazil School of the Prophets. I don't think I missed anything else, but that one chunk I missed. I saw the camp meetings, but I missed that chunk of classes.
Yeah.
I just emailed it to you, Christine, and I'm very glad we had this discussion.
Thank you.
You would have been even better off if I already started putting all the board work together, huh? But I wasn't there yet.
I did the whole thing, and I think I thought I saved it twice, so I erased one, and it erased the whole thing.
Ah,
So if Adriana can look in the computer or somehow in the recycle bin to find it.
please find it for her. That would suck. Oh man.
Yeah. So I think it was this Proverbs that we were doing before, because it has a lot of the same wordage. Wise men will hear and will increase in learning to
Oh.
understand a proverb. The
We
fear
did.
of the Lord. Ow, ow, ow. My son, hear instruction of thy father, and forsake all the law of mother, for the
This is where I was understanding God as male and female when we went through this too. I think you have it in there right there. LGBTQ, you've mentioned it in there. So,
Where? Oh yeah, great.
because we were discussing that at that time, that I didn't completely understand what it meant, but it was showing God as male and female, or male and female aspects.
So we were doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Wait,
Huh.
I look at it as the Lord preparing us in interesting ways. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Amen.
He prepares us to be able to understand things. And, you know, I find it really interesting when I look back. We talked about this once before. One of the studies that we did, I don't remember when, not long ago, that we went back and were reviewing, and on the board, right there on the board, I think I pulled up a screenshot of a board that I had saved, and there it was right there, way back in like, what, 2019, where Adriana had been saying it. She put it on the board. She put it on the board, and I was like, it just went right past me when she put LGBT. She put racism, sexism, and LGBT or homophobia, and it was right there on the board all along. And then one of these reunion studies. I don't remember if I put it in the WhatsApp teacher group or I sent it to a couple people individually. In the reunion study, he's also talking about gender roles in women. What does he say? Susan's not with us tonight, right? Because I'm pretty sure I sent it to Susan. Reunion number 11, or the last one in reunion, where it talks about women's roles, I think. But he says, if we're talking about gender, what did he say? Oh, I can't remember. I might have to go back and look up in who I sent it to. But it was right there. It's always been there, which just always amazes me how, you know, sometimes it seems like I got something, I figured something out, and it was always there. It was already there. God already showed it to us. And I thank God for his mercy and his grace, because there's things that I know have gone right past me that I later come to understand, and then go back and look at a previous video, and it's like, wow, it was already there.
Yeah. This is. I think when we initially, because I have had that a lot happen as well. I think when you initially hear a first study, there are a few buzz things that will stand out to you as something really interesting, and I think it blocks out everything else.
I think that's true, because we learned it in stages, and it kind of like what you were talking about earlier. We're just going to put all this information out there, right? We're just going to we're not making application. We're just going to put all, because all this information goes out and it slowly builds a picture. And just like a puzzle, you know, you don't see the whole picture with just a few pieces of the puzzle together. So then
Yeah.
pieces are put together, put in there and put in there and put in there, and pretty soon then you see the picture. But what's interesting is how you can go back and see it was already said.
Yeah, but the thing is when you have like here, I'm sure we put some stuff in passing. We didn't even think it was that important. And now it's like a thing that's important.
Yeah,
You just don't even realize it at the time what you're doing. You're like, oh, that seems to have popped out of this verse somehow. Anyways, moving on.
yeah.
And now you're like, wait a minute, that was the important part.
So it was our Proverbs study. I was surprised I didn't remember that.
Oh, that was.
So this has been good. This has been good. We're always wanting to get back to doing parables, and this is what Martinique's going to help us with. It's going to exercise our brains. I know mine needs exercising. I can't speak for all of you guys, but I know mine needs some serious exercise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always down to doodle. So whenever you need me, let me know.
We like that. If it was me trying to doodle, it'd all be going up on a hill. It's
I'm
hard.
telling you, having the ability to expand and move around like that, I don't know what I'm gonna do when I have to do it on a whiteboard because
Oh yeah, that's true.
this is I don't know how Tess and Parminder must practice this before they do it because I don't know how they know what they're gonna need on there.
And don't run
And
out
I
of
have
room.
to
Yeah,
erase a bunch. Ugh.
I run out of room just trying to redo what they've done, and
Right?
have to fix stuff.
Yeah. Anyways.
Well, really good study. Thank you for doodling with us for us.
Anytime.
So did you see I did put a verse in here that's always been on my mind a lot. Isaiah 30, actually verse 21, which I didn't put in here, but verse 20. And you have to go back and read Isaiah 30 to see who's who and who's being talked about. But in verse 20, it says, and though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet shall not thy teachers be removed into a corner anymore, but thine eyes shall see thy teachers. I was just thinking about it because we're looking at this Maskil of Asaph, and it's a song, an instructive song or poem, and Asaph means gatherer, so it's the 144,000 gathering using the song, which is the everlasting gospel, and they are the teachers.
It's
And
pretty
the
cool.
teachers, if I understand verse 21, the teachers are the ones that are, the people hear a voice saying, this is the way, walk ye in it, when you turn to the right hand or when you turn to the left hand.
It's a lot of responsibility.
What's that?
It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have to deal with the church and the world.
Right. But I
And
really
we got to keep everyone
getting us positioned. I noticed that with Susan, who's not here with us tonight. He's getting her in position. Had a little discussion. I don't think Lana's with us anymore. I was having a little bit of chat with Lana back and forth earlier. And he seems to be getting hurt. Well, everybody saw her post. I see him getting us in position. And I know he's done some things in my life, getting me in position. I know he's doing some things with Tony, getting her in position. So I really believe that that's what he's doing. He's getting us in position where we're going to be able to, for me, I mean, I'm around just you guys and two dogs and cat all day long, you know what I mean? And so he's getting us in position. For you, Adriana, you're already there. You're working and you're around people. So others are also as well. But he's getting us in place to where we're ready for wherever we're at. That's where our calling may be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I might go work for a railroad company.
You might what?
Nothing, never mind.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all pieces are gonna start coming together, I think.
Yeah. And then we were talking the other night because we do have Pentecost to come as well.
Yeah.
If I understand correctly, Pentecost is going to help us understand a little, what we've been putting in. Is that correct?
I'm hoping so.
Yeah. I think it's
Because
been,
I've still
it's,
got places in my head that I'm like,
I think it's really timely that we went back to Martinique and, because we've really focused, I have, anyways, on my notes that I've been doing, I've really focused on Elder Tess's presentations. And I think part of it is when it comes to doing the transcribing, I really struggle. It takes a whole lot of time to do the board work for Elder Parmenders, but it's so useful to go through it. So, so I'm hoping to be able to get the board work as I continue to go through these. Like I said, I'm glad I didn't, well, sorry, Christina, but I'm glad I didn't actually go through the board work already, but it would have helped you if I did. And that was my plan actually, was to work on that one tomorrow, the slideshow for tomorrow. So anyway,
well,
so
now you're free.
yeah, yeah, I'm gonna
Not
go
really.
I'm gonna go transcribe tonight, number 8. And but so yeah, I think it's timely that he's putting us all back to Parmender's presentations and parables.
Yeah. This helped me for sure. Because with everything that I have stacked up in my knowledge now, going back to this lesson, I was able to understand the stuff that I didn't before, so I didn't have to think about that as hard. And I was able to get all the other little pieces and nuances that escaped me before because I was overwhelmed with the big stuff. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to get this down. We're going to understand parables. We're going to understand all parables, prophecy. Jesus is a parable. We're going to understand the Sabbath is a parable. We're going to understand that parables are prophecy. Did I already say that one? They're dark sayings. We're going to connect it all together with the song. So I look forward to tomorrow's study. Brother Phil, right? Picks up where you leave off. Oh, by the way, if you have the notes, email them out to me if you do. I want to send the email for tomorrow out.
Yes. We're
An experiment.
attempting.
Okay, if you don't have them, I'll just send the email out. We can send the notes later. It's okay.
Yes,
Yes.
different format tomorrow.
Uh,
Pray for him. Pray for us.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, well, pray for me. You just heard what I did. So, yeah. But I'm glad I know now instead of, maybe the 22nd. So, well, Adriana, do you want to close us in prayer?
I sure can. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for how wonderful and interesting and fascinating that study was, especially when practicing parables together as a group. We always learn so much that way, and it's so thought-provoking and engaging, and it just wakes you up and it gets you so interested, and it brings up 100 questions in your brain that you want to answer and just want to go into study forever. It's such a wonderful experience when we get to do that, and we thank you so much for the opportunity. We also thank you for the study we're going to have tomorrow as well, continuing on these themes. We can't wait. We ask that you bless us with knowledge and understanding in there as well. Be with Fel and Logina as they try to maneuver with the technology, and as we all try to maneuver our technologies to give a good lesson. Continue to bless our efforts in those regards. Continue to be with us in guiding us in our knowledge and understanding, and help us with our health situations and life situations, personal family situations. Help us, Lord, continue to situate us where you want us to be, where we're going to be able to make the biggest amount of effect on the people in the world around us for their betterment and ours as well. And we ask that you be with us the Sabbath and make it a blessed one as you always have. We pray all these things in the Lord Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. And just in case nobody knows yet, I am going to put the email out, but we have Elder Parmender tomorrow at 9:30. I think we talked about it on Wednesday, but maybe some of you weren't here. So we have Elder Parmender on Wednesday. I mean, tomorrow at 9:30. Did I say Wednesday? Sorry.
Okay, thank you. God
Yeah,
bless.
so we have Desire of Ages, shortened Desire of Ages, then Elder Parmender, and then Fel, and then research and discussion.
So I'm presenting Elder Parmender.
Thank you.
Hello.